Buenas tardes a todos. Reconocemos la presencia del Secretario de Estado de Puerto Rico y pasada gobernadora Sila María Calderón. También reconocemos la presencia del Archivista Nacional, el señor David Arroyo. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished heads of state and federal agencies, legislative leaders, cultural institute representatives, leaders of academia, and distinguished guests. Bienvenidos al Departamento de Estado de Puerto Rico. Welcome to the Puerto Rico Department of State. Before we begin, it is imperative to recognize the presence of our Puerto Rico Secretary of State, Honorable Kenneth McClintock. Former Secretary of State and former Governor of Puerto Rico, Sila María Calderón. Executive Director of the Center for Puerto Rico, Ernesto Villarina. Official Archivist of the Sila María Calderón Foundation, Jose Ortiz. And our honored guest this evening, the 10th National Archivist of the United States, Honorable David Arroyo. Today we bear witness to a truly historic event in our island's history. Today we are honored to receive the visit of National Archivist Mr. David Arroyo, who happily accepted to be with us this evening to share his experience of his service to our nation. Mr. Arroyo, on behalf of the Puerto Rico Department of State and the people of Puerto Rico, welcome to America's shining star in the Caribbean. Without further ado, it is my duty and my honor to invite to the podium the Secretary of State of Puerto Rico, Honorable Kenneth McClintock.
Gracias, Phillip. Thank you, and welcome to the State Department, and I add my words of welcome to the Archivist. It is really an honor to have him here. I really don't know if there ever has been a visit by an archivist of the United States to Puerto Rico before. You don't think so? And your archives are better than mine, so if you say you think so, it's probably true. But I have always been, and I want to thank Governor Calderón for taking the initiative of making it possible for David to be here with us. I was with him last week. We had the National Association of Secretaries of State meeting in Washington, D.C., and he extended the courtesy of bringing us into the National Archive and have a reception for us. And the best thing yet was that he allowed us to have a private viewing of our nation's most precious documents, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, late in the evening with no tourists pushing us along and no guards looking over us. Well, there were a couple of guards, but he didn't confide in us entirely. But we had a great time there, and he also set up a special exhibition of some favorite documents of the archive so that we could have a close, private look at them. So we had a delightful evening. And I've been a history buff all my life. I use a nom de plume to write things for Wikipedia because I think that Puerto Rico's history has to be put on the web. And I know that there are scholars that don't believe in that because they would rather write books that nobody reads, that are in a library that nobody can reach. But at least in Wikipedia, you can do your assignments and your homework at 2 o'clock in the morning in an all-nighter and hope that you get it more or less right. I'm already a published author with my fellow author and Puerto Rico Democratic Party State Chair, Roberto Prats. We're already now writing a second book, which is a more history-related, less politically related book than the first book that we wrote. And I've always said that in Puerto Rico, we just don't pay enough attention to preserving history, and history is preserved through the preservation of documents. We have several former governors of Puerto Rico. Don Luis Muñoz Marin's library is the first one and the model to initially follow. but of our modern living governors, I think that Governor Calderon has paved the way and has shown her fellow governors the way that things should be done. And within 5 years of her leaving office, she already had a dramatic, spectacular center, not only for the study of her governorship, but for the study of the problems of Puerto Rico. And she's basically set up what is becoming a think tank right there in the middle of Rio Piedras, near the University of Puerto Rico, so that it'll be accessible to scholars and students at UPR, but not close enough that they might burn her papers. And I think that all other governors, that are former governors that are with us today, should be following in the footsteps of what Governor Calderon is already doing. And I think that in Puerto Rico we have still a lot that has to be done in terms of archiving our history. And we look forward to seeing how we can cooperate in the future to try to strengthen and improve the funding of the Archivo General and all the other institutions in Puerto Rico that are in charge of preserving our documents, and through our documents preserving history. And I would say that, you know, we have a responsibility with Puerto Ricans in the future in preserving our past. And I don't think that we're doing as good a job as we should be doing. We're not giving it the importance that it should be given. I know that in many other states there's also been a defunding of this kind of activity, but I don't want us to follow in the footsteps of those states. I want to, rather than that, be able to follow the path not followed by many others in trying to improve our archives here in Puerto Rico. And I've already been talking to David about the possibility that maybe in the year 2012, when we will be celebrating the 200th anniversary of the Constitution de las Cortes de Cádiz in Spain, which was the first constitution applicable to Puerto Rico and the first constitution that gave political rights to the residents of Puerto Rico under the Spanish Crown, that we will also have the opportunity of perhaps receiving the visit of some of the older copies of our nation's top documents. Things like perhaps a copy, not the original, but a copy of the Declaration of Independence, a copy of the Constitution, and perhaps even a good copy or maybe the original of the Treaty of Paris, which is also an important document in Puerto Rican history. So we will be working with the National Archives to explore the possibility that we can bring those documents at an appropriate time here in Puerto Rico. So I've got my work set out for me, inspired by David's visit, which in itself is inspired by Governor Calderon's visit to bring him to Puerto Rico. So I thank the governor, and I thank the archivist, and I would like to ask the governor to say a few words.
Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for being so generous with your words, and thank you for receiving me again, receiving us here in my old home. I see everything is very well kept. I think they're the same curtains. I don't think you've changed them.
Well, we've actually cleaned them.
Oh, you've cleaned them? Well, I had them cleaned. I don't know what happened afterwards. That's for sure. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's such an honor to be able to be here again in the Department of State, and we are so pleased and honored also to have David Arroyo as our guest in Puerto Rico. David is an extraordinary person, and not only is he a spectacular professional, but he has wonderful, wonderful personal. He was, let's say, the president of the library, was the chairman, you know, acting president, but he really was the president of the library. He was the chief executive officer of the library. And as such, he did a spectacular job. And that's why the president appointed him as the Archivist of the nation, of the United States. So we're very happy that he accepted our invitation to come here, and he spoke this morning, gave a wonderful lecture, which he finished with some papers and documents, which he showed on screen, of course, on Puerto Rico, which we loved. And he also made us laugh a little bit at the beginning and perhaps you can repeat some of the things that you said this morning. They were wonderful. I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank again the Secretary for hosting us, and David for coming to Puerto Rico. I invited him today because I thought he would come with his wife or his family and spend the entire weekend. It's a long weekend. But no. He's going back at 5 o'clock in the morning, tomorrow morning. So I think there's some workaholics in this room right now. So thank you very much, David, Mr. Secretary, and all of you, and enjoy the evening. And is David going to see? Yeah. Who would like David to say? Well, David, you're introduced. Yeah. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Ferreiro.
Thank you very much. It's been an extraordinary day. This is my first visit to Puerto Rico, and it's been an extraordinary opportunity to not only meet a lot of great people, but to get some time to explore Puerto Rico, and to know enough now that I need to come back and spend some time and really get to know this place. It's been extraordinary to hear from, I know Sila very well, so I know how she thinks about archives, and it was a great opportunity to see what she's accomplished with her own papers and her own archive today. But to meet with the Secretary this afternoon was a real pleasure to meet with someone who understands history and understands the value of records and really appreciates the role that those records play in the lives of individuals. And I'm so pleased that you have that perspective, because it doesn't exist in a lot of states. So you're very lucky to have him as your Secretary of State. I'm also really pleased to hear him say that he writes for Wikipedia. Wikipedia is now 10 years old. You may not know that, but Wikipedia is 10 years old, and there have been 10-year birthday parties around the country, and the National Archives was the host of one of those birthday parties, and I had an opportunity to speak to the attendees, a day-long series of events. And now it is on the blogosphere that if Wikipedia is good enough for the Archivist of the United States, so I have kind of established the credibility of Wikipedia, so it was really nice to hear your comments. I look forward to working with Puerto Rico on archival issues, to lend whatever resources and expertise from Washington that we can to help you, and especially looking forward to seeing what we can do to enhance your celebration in 2012 with some documents from the National Archives. So thank you all for your hospitality.
Thank you, Mr. Ferreiro, for your words and for your service to our nation. And with those words, we officially conclude this event this afternoon. But before we do,
Not the event, talking part.
the talking part of the event, obviously, duly corrected by the Secretary. We would like to recognize the young people that will be entertaining us tonight, which is Los Violines de Marquito. We're going to mention a little bit about them. They are a group of violinist group that were formed by 4 young Puerto Ricans between the age of 13. Thank you. We will now take the opportunity to recognize Dr. Máximo Cerame, Chairman of the Council of Higher Education, Dr. Miguel Muñoz, Acting President of the University of Puerto Rico, Now we officially conclude the speaking part of our event tonight. On behalf of the Puerto Rico Department of State, we thank you all for your attendance. Muy buenas tardes.